So similar to all the videos we've made today, we're going to be going over what are the best marksman rifles inside Black Ops 6. And we've got the SWAT 556, the Sarkov 762, the AEK 973, and the DM10, right? So these are the 4 options that we do have. Starting off with the SWAT 556, this is actually a burst fire rifle. So as you can see here, this is burst fire, so the shots kind of just land in the exact same location constantly, which is pretty good. So there's not technically a recoil pattern to this, although, I mean, you can try and adjust for it, but there's nothing much to really adjust for. It's a very accurate weapon. And even at range, obviously I know there's no optic on this, you're kind of going to be hitting your shots pretty much perfectly at range as well, which might make this gun actually pretty decent, to be honest, because it's very low skill. But we'll get into the rest of the details of this weapon as well. Next up, we've got the Sarkov, and this gun, I've put an optic on it. It doesn't come with a base optic, and that's just so we can check the shots at long range. But when it comes to close range, obviously, your shots are pretty much landing at the exact same point, so you don't need to worry about that too much. But obviously, at range, you've got idle sway and things like that, so your shots are not always going to be perfect. Although it does recenter pretty well, this gun. That is a good thing, but we'll get into more of the details, like I said, later with these marksman rifles, because there's a lot I do have to say on them. But like I said, the recenter on these are pretty decent as well. I know True Game Data made a video on the recentering and how that works with optics and things, and I'm not sure if that's just sniper rifle specific, but we'll get into those details in our sniper rifle video as well. But for the most part, recentering is fine, and obviously the shots are landing in the same location. Next up, we've got the AEK, another burst fire one. So this is a 3-round burst, and I think the previous one was a 4-round burst, so slightly different both ways. But again, shots are landing in the exact same spot, and then we are trying to shoot at range as the farthest target away. And as you can see, you're definitely hitting your shots. Now, these seem to be very accurate weapons, which is pretty strange. But I mean, I think it's kind of low skill. And they do have pretty large mag capacities as well, so we'll kind of see how these play out in game. Last but not least, we've got the DM10, the only one that comes with a pre-installed optic, and you can hold to focus and all that kind of thing. So again, shots are landing in the same position more or less all the time, which is pretty standard now from all these marksman rifles. Again, ADSing and things, I mean, there is a bit of sway. Obviously you can mitigate that with some attachments, but what I'm trying to understand here is when you ADS, it does kind of go on center target, which is obviously what you want, especially if you know how to center your screen and look at targets and use aim assist pretty well as well. Then this is going to be pretty handy. Moving on into the True Game Data website now, I do want to go over this TTK chart, because I do think this will be quite important for these weapons, because they're very specific kind of weapons, in my personal opinion. Now, we're using chest shot TTKs here, and obviously, when it comes to these kind of guns, you do get higher damage profiles when it comes to things like headshots. As you can see here, you get a 70 headshot damage with the DM10. You're going to get 44 headshot damage with the AEK. Sarkov obviously be 105, so that's quite high. When it comes to damage, that's a one-hit headshot inside multiplayer anyway. And then when it comes to the SWAT 556, 41 to the head, but obviously this is going to be at the closest damage range. So I do want to point that out, because I do think that's quite important, because damage values on these kind of weapons across the board are slightly higher than what we would get on something like an assault rifle, for example. So as you can see here, this is the XM4, which is kind of the more kind of in-between assault rifle when it comes to TTKs and things. And as you can see, it's quite low damage. Now, having said that, we're going to look at the actual chart now. So the chart is going to show the DM10 performing really well in terms of damage range. It does have 3 damage drop-offs though, so do keep that in mind in multiplayer, up to 80 meters. When it comes to some of the other weapons like the SWAT 556 and the AEK, which are both the burst fire options, by the way, they only have 2 damage drop-off points, so they'll be a bit more consistent, and that's why they feel a little bit better when you see me fire them in game. The only issue is they are super accurate, but the TTKs are not great, because as you can see here, the XM4 is in yellow, which is this line here, and the XM4 outperforms it as a fully automatic assault rifle. So even though they're burst fire weapons, and even though they're going to be very accurate, if you're more accurate with a fully automatic weapon, like an assault rifle like the XM4, and that's not even the fastest TTK assault rifle in the game, then you're going to outperform these weapons anyway. Now, if you just want a low skill gun, then obviously they kind of make a bit of sense. Now, when it comes to the semi-auto ones, the DM10 obviously is pretty good up until about 60 meters. And then we do have the Tarkov as well, which does perform really well, especially if you do land a headshot or two. So that will obviously bring your TTKs way down, right? So if you land one headshot, you're pretty much getting a 2-shot kill for the most part with the DM10 and the Tarkov especially. Moving on into some extra stats as well here. We've got fire rates and things, but obviously the burst fire weapons are going to be slightly quicker. The semi-auto ones will be slightly slower, and the XM4 is going to be way higher because it's an assault rifle and it doesn't fit in this category. The only reason I added it in was for TTK comparisons. We do have the Tarkov mag sizes and things don't really matter too much because we can improve on those with attachments. Reload times are kind of similar to assault rifles across the board, which is pretty good actually. Bullet velocities are kind of higher than assault rifles. The XM4 is not the highest, but it's the same, so that's quite good. ADS times are slightly slower than assault rifles, as we can see. Sprint to fire again, slightly slower than assault rifles, as we can see. Sprint speeds are very similar. ADS movement speeds are quite similar. And then swap speeds are kind of similar, except from the AEK. Now, this is where this video is going to get a bit weird now, because I don't really have much of a conclusion for these kind of weapons. Because A, they're both in kind of two separate categories. You've got the burst fire ones, and then you've got the semi-auto ones. The semi-auto ones kind of sit with sniper rifles a bit more. The burst fire ones kind of sit more with the LMGs and assault rifles on how you want to actually use them, because we're basically using them like an assault rifles that are fully automatic. So when it comes to the burst fire options, in terms of TTKs, they're both very similar weapons, so there's almost no discernible difference when it comes to TTKs when we're factoring just chest shots alone. And I don't imagine the mixed shots are going to be too much different either, to be honest, especially multiplayer anyway. Now, another interesting thing as well is that you can add rapid fire onto these and make the TTKs even faster. It doesn't really con the recoil too much, to be honest, but you will get a slightly quicker fire rate, in turn getting a faster TTK for both of the burst fire weapons. So that's the AEK and this one here as well, which is the SWAT. So if you want a low recoil gun that you can fire at range but it's not going to give you the best TTKs, then you could definitely use them. But assault rifles will beat these guns because they do have faster time to kills. When it comes to the marksman style ones or the semi-auto ones, whatever you want to call it, you do get rapid fire on these as well, but keep in mind it's semi-automatic in the first place. You need to reach that max trigger cap to get the highest potential TTK, and the likelihood is you're going to be firing one single shot at a time, try to land a headshot, and then maybe one or two body shots to get your kill. That's how these guns are actually going to be used. You're not going to be spamming the trigger constantly because you're not really going to hit any shots doing that. When it comes to these guns, the recentering is good on them, so I mean that's something that I'm not sure. When I test the snipers, I'll get into that, but for this kind of build, I think what you should be looking for is basically to make it like a sniper rifle. But like I said, I don't really see how they fit in to be better than a sniper rifle, because you could definitely one-shot headshot with the snipers. So it's kind of a weird place where I can't really recommend these ones in particular either. So they don't really beat the categories that they're kind of competing in my opinion. They are good guns, and if you're not very good with a sniper, then you can use this. But I think most people will just tend to use a sniper in the first place. But that is my conclusion. Let me know what you think about these guns if you've tested them out a bit more than me. I'd like to hear what you think about this weapon category in particular, actually, because I don't really have much of a conclusion for it and which guns are actually the best. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.